My daughter forgot to hang up the phone. I sat there, frozen, as her voice echoed through the receiver. It's time for him to go to a nursing home. He's a burden. I didn't say a word. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Within 2 weeks, the house, the one they thought they'd inherit, was sold for $890,000. When they returned from their business trip, they walked up the porch, smiling, suitcases in hand. But when the key wouldn't fit, their faces fell. On the doorstep lay an envelope. Inside, one short note, written in my hand. As they read, the smiles drained, replaced by shrieks that carried down the street. Neighbors peeked out their windows as my family, who once called me a burden, finally realized what I'd done. The words hit me like a physical blow, colder than any winter wind. He's a burden. It's time for him to go to a nursing home. In that single, shattering instant, something inside me broke, and I knew my life, and theirs, was about to change forever. You see, my daughter, Caitlin, had called, and bless her heart, she'd forgotten to hang up the phone. I was just scraping the last bits of Ellen's meatloaf from my plate, though mine never tasted quite right without her touch, when the phone rang. It was Caitlin, her voice carrying that familiar warmth that always made my chest tighten with love and loneliness. "Dad, how are you holding up?" she'd asked, and I'd settled into Ellen's old recliner, the leather worn smooth from years of her evening reading. "Oh, you know me, sweetheart. Just finished dinner, about to watch the news." I didn't tell her it was 3-day-old leftovers or that I'd been staring at Ellen's photo for an hour. She worried, like a good daughter should. "Are you eating enough? You know you can always order groceries online, right?" I told her I was fine, but mentioned a little scare. I'd forgotten to turn off the burner under my coffee pot. A small pause, and I could picture her frowning, that little crease between her eyebrows, just like her mother. "Dad, maybe we should talk about getting someone to check on you more regularly." Jeremy thinks. "I'm fine, Caitlin." "Really? How's your business trip going? You're in Phoenix, right?" She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Yes, the conference ends tomorrow. Jeremy's handling most of the client meetings while I sit through endless presentations about digital marketing." Then, suddenly, "Listen, Dad, I should probably get going. Jeremy and I have dinner plans." "Of course, sweetheart. I love you." "Love you too, Dad. Take care of yourself, okay?" I heard a click, then rustling. She must have dropped the phone in her purse, I thought, reaching to hang up my end. But then, muffled yet clear through her phone's microphone, came Jeremy's voice. "Jeremy, you see how he's deteriorating? He forgot to turn off the stove yesterday. What if he burns the house down?" Caitlin's voice was no longer warm and caring. My hand froze on the receiver. Fear, cold and sharp, spread through my chest. "It's time for a nursing home, Caitlin," Jeremy said, his tone utterly devoid of emotion. "He's becoming a burden, and you know it. Your dad's a good man, but he can't live alone anymore. The house is worth almost $1 million now." Caitlin's tone shifted, pure calculation. "With Denver's market, we could probably get $900,000, maybe more." "Exactly." Jeremy sounded pleased. "We could sell it, put him somewhere decent, not too expensive, and finally buy that house in Boulder we've been looking at. The one with the mountain view." Then, my daughter laughed. Actually laughed. "God, Jeremy, you should have seen him tonight. So grateful just to hear from me. He has no idea we're planning this. The longer we wait, the more confused he'll get. We should strike while he still trusts us completely." The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor Ellen and I had installed together 23 years ago. Every board laid by my own hands, every nail driven with thoughts of our family's future. I sat in the sudden silence, staring at Ellen's photograph. Her eyes seemed to bore into mine with an expression I couldn't quite read. Disappointment? Warning? Or maybe just the terrible knowledge that comes to those who've already left this world. The grandfather clock in the hallway, Ellen's anniversary gift, ticked steadily. Outside, the first spring crickets began their evening song in the garden Ellen had planted, and I still tended. Something cold and hard settled in my chest, replacing the warmth I'd felt just moments before. My hands, weathered from decades of construction work, slowly curled into fists. They thought I was a burden. They thought I was confused, helpless, ready to be managed and discarded. They were already spending my money, already planning their new life in my grave. But I wasn't dead yet. And I wasn't nearly as confused as they believed. I don't know how long I sat there. The house felt different now, as if the walls themselves had heard my daughter's betrayal. When I finally stood, my legs unsteady, the warm lamplight fell across the living room we'd furnished piece by piece. The burgundy sofa where Caitlin used to curl up, the coffee table I'd built in the garage, sanding it smooth while she played at my feet. I walked to the kitchen and opened the drawer where I kept old receipts. My fingers found the folder I was looking for, 20 years of financial records Ellen always said to keep. University of Colorado tuition receipts, $48,000 over 4 years. I remembered those double shifts, coming home with concrete dust in my hair. Ellen would have coffee waiting, massaging my shoulders while I paid bills at this very kitchen table. "Roy, you're working yourself to death," she'd said. "She deserves better than we had." Ellen had kissed my head. "Just don't give her so much that she forgets to be grateful." God, I should have listened. The wedding receipts were in there, too. $32,000 for one day. I'd worked weekends for 6 months. "Daddy, you're the best father in the world," she'd whispered during our dance. I'll never forget this. But she had forgotten. Just like she'd forgotten who co-signed her first car loan, who made calls to get her that marketing job. I found bank statements from 2 years ago. After Jeremy lost his financial advisor position, for reasons they never fully explained, they'd moved in. Temporarily, they said. I never charged them rent. I paid the increased utility bills, bought groceries for 3 adults instead of one lonely widower. Jeremy would pat my shoulder, calling me the most generous man in Colorado. Caitlin would hug me. "Dad, we'll pay you back when we get on our feet." They'd been on their feet for over a year now, both working good jobs, making more money than I ever had. But they'd never mentioned moving out. Never mentioned paying me back. The anniversary dinner I'd paid for last month, $200 at that fancy steakhouse. The car repair bill for Jeremy's BMW, $3,000 that cleaned out my emergency fund. Roy's like a father to me, Jeremy had told his friends at their last barbecue, his arm around my shoulders. I'd been proud, actually proud, to be the generous father-in-law, the man who took care of his family. No matter the cost. I walked upstairs to Ellen's side of the bedroom, still unchanged after 2 years. Her jewelry box, her reading glasses, a bookmark marking page 247 of the novel she'd never finish. I'd built these walk-in closets with my own hands. Her clothes still hung there, smelling faintly of her perfume. This was the room where we'd planned our future, where Ellen had died holding my hand. "Promise me you won't let them take advantage of you, Roy," she'd whispered. "You're too good, too generous. Promise me you'll take care of yourself." I'd promised. But I hadn't kept it, had I? In my home office, I found Ellen's folder of construction photos. Me laying the foundation in '99, 25 years younger. Ellen, belly just starting to show with Caitlin, bringing us lemonade. The financial records told the story the photos couldn't, second mortgage, personal loan from my brother, Ellen taking a part-time job. We'd eaten beans and rice for months. But we built this house with our sweat, our sacrifice, our love. And now my daughter, the baby who'd taken her first steps in this kitchen, wanted to sell it all and put me away like an inconvenient piece of furniture. I picked up Todd Fisher's business card. Ellen had insisted we meet him after her cancer diagnosis. It was time for another consultation. The next morning, I walked through my house like a stranger, seeing it as Caitlin and Jeremy saw it: square footage, market value, liquid assets. In the kitchen, I ran my hand along the granite countertop I'd installed myself. Ellen had picked the pattern, speckled gray with veins of gold. She'd made coffee here for 16 years. I remembered 3-year-old Caitlin taking her first wobbly steps from the refrigerator to Ellen's outstretched arms. "Our baby's walking in our house," Ellen had whispered, tears streaming. In the house we built for her. The living room held 25 years of Christmas mornings. I could still see 7-year-old Caitlin's face lighting up at the dollhouse I'd spent 3 months building in the garage. "Daddy, it's just like our house," she'd squealed. And it was, a perfect replica, down to the little bay window in her bedroom. That bay window had cost me 6 months of overtime. Ellen had seen it in a magazine. Roy, we can't afford this, she'd worried. You want it? You'll have it, I'd told her. I'll make it work. I climbed the stairs to Caitlin's old room, still painted the soft yellow she'd chosen for her 16th birthday. The room where I'd rocked her through colicky nights, where Ellen and I had helped her with algebra homework. The master bedroom was the hardest. Ellen's side of the bed still had her water glass. They wanted to put me away. They thought I was too old, too confused, too grateful to fight back. I looked at Ellen's photo on the nightstand. Don't give her so much that she forgets to be grateful. Well, Ellen, our daughter, had definitely forgotten. But she was about to remember that her old man wasn't as helpless as she thought. I walked to my home office and called Todd Fisher. His office was lined with law books and family photos. Mr. Hayes, good to see you again, he said. I remember you and Ellen. I'm sorry for your loss. I told him everything, the phone call, the overheard conversation, their plan. Todd listened, shaking his head slightly. Unfortunately, Mr. Hayes, this scenario is more common than you'd think. But they can't actually do anything, can they? Legally? I asked. The house is titled in your name only, Todd confirmed. Then, legally speaking, your daughter and son-in-law have absolutely no claim to your property. They cannot sell it, cannot force you into a care facility, cannot make any decisions about your assets without your explicit consent. The house belongs to you. Period. Relief flooded through me, followed by something sharper. So if I wanted to sell it myself, you could put it on the market tomorrow if you chose to. It's your property, your decision. He looked up. May I ask why you're considering that option? I thought about Caitlin's laugh when she called me a burden, Jeremy's cold calculation. 25 years of sacrifice reduced to a transaction. They think I'm helpless, confused. They think they can manage me like a piece of property. My hands clenched. Maybe it's time I showed them exactly how sharp my mind really is. Todd was quiet. Denver's housing market is incredibly strong right now. Properties are selling within days, often for cash offers above asking price. If you were serious about selling quickly before your daughter and son-in-law return, we could have a sale completed within a week, maybe less. I built that house with my own hands, Mr. Fisher. Every board, every nail, every custom detail. I know exactly what I'm doing. We spent the next hour discussing market values, cash buyer networks, legal requirements. He could have everything prepared within 24 hours. The consultation fee was $200. I paid in cash, feeling more clear-headed than I had in months. Walking to my truck, my phone buzzed. Caitlin. For the first time since her betrayal, I smiled. I let it ring. Let her wonder. Let her and Jeremy make their plans about my future, my house, my life. They were in for the surprise of their lives. By the time I reached my driveway, confidence had replaced the tremor in my hands. Todd Fisher's words echoed, "It's your property, your decision." 25 years of doubt had lifted like Denver fog. I was unlocking my front door when the phone rang again. Caitlin's name glowed. I let it stew, then picked up on the 6th ring. "Dad, there you are." Caitlin's voice practically sparkled with artificial enthusiasm. I was starting to worry. "Sorry, sweetheart. I was out running some errands." I kept my tone warm, grandfatherly. "How's Phoenix treating you?" "Oh, you know these conferences. But listen, I have the most wonderful news. Jeremy and I have been planning something very special for you." She paused for dramatic effect. "We want to treat you to a vacation. You deserve some rest and relaxation after everything since Mom died." Her voice carried that practiced sympathy I now recognized as manipulation. "There's this beautiful place we found. It's like a resort, but with medical staff on hand, just in case you need anything." A resort with medical staff. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. "That sounds lovely, sweetheart. You really didn't need to go to such trouble." "Nonsense. Your family," Jeremy's voice came through, probably on speaker. "We've already made all the arrangements." "When were you thinking?" I managed, knowing they wanted me gone before they returned. "We should be back by next Friday," Caitlin said. We were hoping you could be ready by then. Just pack some clothes and personal items. You know, the essentials. The essentials. Not Ellen's photo albums. Not the furniture I'd built. Just the essentials for an old man being shuffled off to die. Actually, Caitlin, I have a surprise for you, too, when you get back. Oh, Dad, what kind of surprise? She sounded genuinely pleased, imagining I'd signed papers or something. I walked to the bay window I'd built for Ellen, looking out at the garden. It's something I've been working on since our last conversation. I think you'll be very surprised. You're so sweet, Dad. We'll talk about everything when we get home. Okay? Get some rest, and we'll take care of everything else. Sweet. She called me sweet while planning to steal my life. I will, sweetheart. I love you. Love you too, Dad. See you Friday. The line went dead. I set the phone down with hands steadier than they'd been in weeks. I walked to my home office and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for just a moment before I typed real estate agents Denver. I'd always been methodical. 25 years as an engineer taught me to research. One name kept appearing, Brian Connor, specialized in quick sales, averaged 18 days from listing to closing. His photo showed a confident smile. Brian sold our house in 6 days. Cash buyer lined up within 48 hours. Smooth closing, no complications. This was it. The moment of no return. Ellen's photo on my desk seemed to be watching me. Roy, are you sure about this? I was sure. More sure than I'd been about anything since her funeral. I dialed Brian Connor's number. Mr. Connor, my name is Roy Hayes. I'm interested in selling my house quickly. How fast can these things actually happen? Well, Mr. Hayes, with the right property and pricing, I've closed deals in as little as 10 days with cash buyers. What kind of timeline are you looking at? 10 days? That fast? My heart hammered. Absolutely. Denver's market is incredibly hot right now. Tell me about your house. 2-story, 3,400 square feet, built in 1999, Cherry Creek area. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Maintained it well. Did most of the work myself. Brian's voice sharpened. That sounds exactly like what several of my investors are looking for. Original owner, well-maintained, established neighborhood. Premium selling points. Can you tell me more? I can be there this afternoon if you're available. Say 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock works perfectly. After I hung up, I sat in the sudden quiet of my kitchen, the magnitude of what I'd set in motion settling in my chest. In 3 hours, a stranger would walk through the house Ellen and I had built, assigning dollar values to our memories. I spent the next 2 hours cleaning obsessively, like Ellen would have wanted. But this cleaning felt different. I wasn't preparing for guests. I was preparing for an execution. At exactly 3 o'clock, the doorbell rang. My hand trembled slightly as it closed around the brass doorknob I'd installed 15 years ago. Beyond this door waited either my salvation or my damnation. I opened it to my future. Brian Connor looked exactly like his photo. Professional, approachable. He carried a leather portfolio and tablet. The moment he stepped inside, his eyes went wide. Wow. He stopped in my entryway, his gaze traveling up the crown molding I'd installed, to the hardwood floors Ellen and I had selected. Mr. Hayes, this is exactly what I was hoping for. He took in the details, the afternoon light, the seamless flow from living room to dining room. You weren't kidding about maintaining this place. He pulled out his tablet, taking photos. These hardwood floors? Installed them myself in 2001. Ellen wanted something that would last. I found myself falling into the rhythm of discussing my work, proud despite everything. And this kitchen. Brian stopped at the granite countertop, running his hand along the edge. Custom installation. Ellen picked the pattern, said the gold veining reminded her of sunlight. My voice caught. I spent 3 weekends getting the measurements perfect. Brian was typing notes, photographing custom cabinets. Mr. Hayes, I have to be honest. In 15 years, I rarely see properties maintained to this standard. I'm an engineer. I believe in building things right the first time. It shows. He gestured to the living room. This bay window, custom work. Built it for my wife. She wanted a reading nook. I could picture her there, with her mystery novels. Brian pulled up listings on his tablet. Similar properties in this area have been selling for $850,000 to $920,000. My chest tightened. More than Caitlin and Jeremy had estimated. But given the condition and custom features of your home, I'm thinking we price it at $890,000. That should move it quickly while getting you top dollar $890,000. I sat down heavily in Ellen's reading chair. That much? Mr. Hayes, you're sitting on a gold mine. I actually have an investment group that's been looking for exactly this type of property. They pay cash, no financing contingencies, no repair negotiations. They can close in 10 business days. 10 business days. Caitlin and Jeremy would return in 8. What's the catch? Why so fast? Brian smiled. No catch. Cash means no loan delays, no appraisal contingencies. Your house is in better shape than most new construction I see. When would I need to be out? Standard contract gives you 30 days after closing, but they're flexible. I thought about Caitlin's voice, Jeremy's cold calculation, Ellen's warning. Let's do it. Brian's professional mask slipped, revealing genuine excitement. Excellent choice, Mr. Hayes. Let me call them right now. He ended the call with a broad smile. They want to move forward immediately. I can have the initial contracts ready by tomorrow morning. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the room where I'd just agreed to sell 25 years of my life. But for the first time since that devastating phone call, I felt something that had been missing for too long. Control. How does 9 a.m. sound? Brian asked. 9 a.m. sounds perfect. After Brian left, I stood alone in the house that would soon belong to someone else. It wasn't sadness I felt. It was anticipation. Brian arrived the next morning with contracts, a notary, and coffee. I read every line like the engineer I was. Sale price, $890,000. Cash purchase. Closing date, 10 business days from signing. The notary walked me through each signature. Minimal contingencies, and I can remain in the house for 30 days after closing? That's correct, Mr. Hayes. Peace of mind? I almost laughed. My peace of mind would come from seeing Caitlin and Jeremy's faces. I signed my name with steady hands, and just like that, the process was in motion. The first 3 days passed in a blur of paperwork and inspections. The title company began their search. The investors sent their team, a polite crew who admired my workmanship. Your father-in-law really knew what he was doing, one of them told the heir, assuming I was already gone. These floors, this electrical work, all top quality. Days 4 through 6, I became a man with a secret mission. I researched apartments online, something small, comfortable, where I could start over with nearly $900,000. I found a senior community in Highlands, the kind of place Ellen and I had sometimes talked about for our golden years. I also called storage facilities, planning which of Ellen's things I'd keep. Her china, her jewelry box, the photo albums, the essentials of a life lived together. Days 7 through 9 brought a strange confidence. Each morning, I woke up knowing I was one step closer to freedom, one step closer to showing my daughter that her confused old father was sharper than she'd ever imagined. Mrs. Patterson next door noticed the activity. Just some work being done, I told her, hating the half-truth. On day 8, Brian called. Everything's on track for tomorrow's closing, Mr. Hayes. Wire transfer will be completed the same day. You'll have access to funds immediately. That night, I packed a single suitcase. I looked at Ellen's photo and whispered, I hope you understand what I'm doing. Friday morning arrived bright and clear. I dressed carefully in the navy suit Ellen had bought me for Caitlin's college graduation. The title company office was all professional efficiency. Mr. Hayes, if you'll sign here and here, an initial there. Each signature felt like cutting a chain. The deed transfer. The settlement statement. The final acknowledgement that 1247 Maple Street no longer belonged to Roy Hayes. And this is your wire transfer confirmation. $890,000, less closing costs, has been deposited to your account. I stared at the numbers. More money than Caitlin and Jeremy had dreamed their burden could access. Brian walked me to my truck. You made the right choice, Mr. Hayes. Sometimes a fresh start is exactly what we need. I drove home, past neighborhoods I'd known for 25 years. Past the elementary school where Caitlin learned to read. But instead of nostalgia, I felt liberation. I pulled into my driveway and sat, looking at the house that was no longer mine. The keys felt heavy. Tomorrow, I'd hand them over. Caitlin and Jeremy were due back in 3 days. They'd arrive expecting to find their grateful, manageable father. Instead, they were going to find an empty house and a lesson they'd never forget. I climbed out of my truck and walked toward my front door, reaching for my phone. The plan was working better than I'd ever hoped. I drove to a Starbucks and dialed directory assistance for a 24-hour locksmith. The emergency fee would cost an extra $200, but money was no longer a concern. I need all my door locks changed today. It's urgent. They promised to be there in 2 hours. Back at the house, I waited in my truck, watching Mrs. Patterson water her garden. She waved, and I waved back, my chest tight with the knowledge that I was lying to everyone who cared. Eddie, the locksmith, arrived. Security issue, sir? He asked. New ownership situation. Better safe than sorry. He nodded, got to work, removing the locks I'd installed 15 years ago. These are quality locks, he commented. Somebody knew what they were doing. That was me. The new locks were silver, modern. They clicked differently. Here are your new keys, sir. 3 copies of each. Eddie handed me a ring of keys that felt foreign. For $150 with the emergency fee. I paid in cash, no paper trail. After Eddie left, I stood in my empty house and began the hardest part, packing 25 years of life into what I could carry. Ellen's jewelry box, our wedding photos, her novels. My engineering certificates. Ellen's favorite cookbook. I left almost everything else. The furniture, the photo albums, Ellen's clothes. I called Sunset Manor Apartments. I need a furnished 1-bedroom immediately. We have a lovely unit available for immediate occupancy, sir. Month-to-month lease if you prefer flexibility. I'll take it. Tonight. I met Mrs. Chen at the apartment complex an hour later. The unit was simple but comfortable. Cash deposit is perfectly fine, Mr. Hayes. I signed the lease, handed over nearly $3,000. Loading my car in the gathering dusk, I caught Mrs. Patterson watching. I felt the weight of all the relationships I was severing, all the connections Caitlin and Jeremy had forced me to cut. I took one last walk through the empty rooms. In the kitchen where Ellen had taught Caitlin to bake. In the living room where we'd watched Caitlin open presents. In our bedroom where Ellen had taken her last breath. I'm sorry, honey, I said aloud to Ellen's memory. But you'd understand. You always said I was too generous for my own good. I locked the new locks and drove away from Maple Street for what might be the last time. My rearview mirror full of the life I was leaving behind. Inside the small apartment, I dropped my suitcase and immediately reached for my phone. The final phase of my plan required one more call. I opened my laptop and began researching banks. Colorado Community Bank caught my attention. Smaller, personal service, discretion. Exactly what I needed. Colorado Community Bank, Private Banking Division. This is David Morrison. Mr. Morrison, my name is Roy Hayes. I need to open an account for a substantial deposit, around $890,000. The brief pause on the other end. We'd be absolutely delighted to work with you, Mr. Hayes. When would be convenient? Monday morning, 9 a.m. perfect. The weekend stretched ahead. This tiny apartment felt like exile, but it was exile by choice. My choice, not theirs. Saturday morning, I unpacked. Ellen's jewelry box on the dresser, my engineering awards on the bookshelf, our wedding photo beside the bed. I drove to the grocery store. Just moved in, I told the kind checkout clerk. Starting fresh. Sunday morning, I found a coffee shop called Brews and Views. "You're new around here," the barista, Sarah, observed. "Retired engineer," I said. "Looking for a quieter life." I sat by the window, watching normal life unfold. But instead of sadness, I felt anticipation. Monday morning, I dressed in my best suit and drove to Colorado Community Bank. David Morrison was younger than I'd expected, with the kind of professional warmth that came from handling people's life savings. I explained my situation. David asked thoughtful questions. "I'll need to wire the funds from my previous bank," I explained. "No problem at all. Funds should clear by Wednesday." I signed documents that made me an official client of Colorado Community Bank, with access to nearly $900,000 that Caitlin and Jeremy would never see. Tuesday and Wednesday passed in the strange rhythm of my new routine. Morning coffee at Brews and Views. Afternoon walks. Wednesday afternoon, David called. "Mr. Hayes, your funds have cleared successfully. Your account is fully active." I hung up and looked around my small apartment. For the first time since Ellen's death, I felt truly in control of my own destiny. Wednesday evening, I sat in my single chair. Not Ellen's reading chair. Just a plain chair in a plain room that belonged entirely to me. I opened my laptop and typed mini surveillance cameras. My fingers hovered. What I was about to order would capture the final act of my revenge. Caitlin and Jeremy were returning on Friday, expecting to find their grateful old father ready to be managed. Instead, they were going to discover that their burden had become their biggest problem. I found what I needed, a wireless mini camera hidden inside a phone charger. Wi-Fi enabled, motion activated, 12-hour battery, crystal clear video. It could stream live footage directly to my phone. I ordered it with expedited shipping. The cost, $149, would have made me hesitate 2 weeks ago. Now, it barely registered. With the camera ordered, I turned to the next crucial element, the note. The note that would explain everything when they discovered their keys no longer worked. The first draft was too angry. The second, too cold. By the third, I found the right tone, dignified, but devastating. Loving, but final. I wrote in my careful engineer's handwriting, the penmanship Ellen had always admired. "Dear Caitlin and Jeremy, if you're reading this, it means my plan worked perfectly. I heard your phone conversation about putting me in a nursing home because I'm becoming a burden. I heard you calculating how much money you'd make selling my house. The house has been sold for $890,000 cash. The money is safely in my new bank account where it will stay. I've moved to a place where I'm appreciated, not tolerated. Don't worry about me. Worry about your own housing situation. Your belongings have been packed and are being stored at Denver Moving and Storage on Fax Avenue. You have 30 days to claim them before storage fees begin. I gave you everything I had for 42 years. You repaid me by planning to warehouse me so you could steal my life's work. I hope the lesson was worth the cost. Love, Dad." Thursday morning, the FedEx truck arrived. I spent an hour testing the device. The video was clear, the audio sharp. Thursday afternoon, I drove to my former house for the last time. I used the garage door opener. Inside, it still smelled like home. But there were new additions that made my chest tight: Caitlin and Jeremy's suitcases by the stairs, their mail scattered on the counter. Evidence that they'd been treating my house as their personal storage facility while planning my exile. I positioned the camera charger by the front door outlet, angling it perfectly. The view through my phone app showed the entire entryway. I tested the motion detection, walking in and out of frame. Then I taped the envelope to the inside of the front door at eye level. Standing in my living room one final time, I touched the mantel where Ellen's photo had sat. "It's done, sweetheart," I whispered. Justice served. I locked the house with my new key, tested the camera feed from my car, and drove back to my apartment. The motion detector was armed, the battery fully charged, and my phone ready to alert me. Back in my apartment, I sat in my chair, watching the empty doorway through the camera app. 6:30 p.m. Thursday. Tomorrow, Caitlin and Jeremy would return, probably discussing their nursing home plans, already spending my money. They had no idea their grateful old father had become their worst nightmare. I woke Friday morning with the anticipation of a man about to witness justice. My coffee tasted better than it had in weeks. As I settled into my chair, the camera feed showed my empty former doorway. 4:30 p.m. They should arrive soon. I'd memorized their travel patterns. Caitlin always left Phoenix by noon. Jeremy drove exactly the speed limit. They'd be pulling in within the hour. I looked at Ellen's photo. Asterisk, I hope you understand what I'm doing, honey. They left me no choice. Asterisk 5:15 p.m. My phone buzzed with motion detection. A black SUV, Jeremy's car, pulled into the driveway. My heart hammered. Caitlin stepped out first, stretching. Jeremy emerged, pulling their suitcases. They moved with the casual confidence of people coming home to claim their inheritance. I watched them approach the front door. Caitlin fished her keys from her purse. She inserted her key into the lock I'd had changed just yesterday. The key didn't turn. Caitlin frowned. She tried again, jiggling. That's weird. My key isn't working. Her voice came through my phone speaker. Jeremy stepped closer. Let me try the back door. I watched him disappear. When he returned, his face had darkened with alarm. Back door is locked, too, and the garage remote isn't working. His voice carried the edge of panic I'd hoped to hear. Caitlin, someone changed these locks. What? That's impossible. Dad doesn't even know any locksmiths. Jeremy studied the front door. These are brand new locks. This isn't an accident. Caitlin pulled out her phone, shaking. I'm calling Dad. I watched her dial my old landline, the number I'd had disconnected. After several rings, her face crumpled. No answer. It's not even going to voicemail. Try his cell phone. He doesn't have a cell phone, remember? We talked about getting him one for emergencies. Her voice cracked with the first hint of real fear. Jeremy examined the windows. There, that one's unlocked. I can boost you up. I watched my daughter climb through the kitchen window I deliberately left unlatched, her business suit catching on the frame. She disappeared inside. Moments later, the front door opened. Jeremy entered with their suitcases. Both of them stopped dead when they saw the white envelope taped to the door. Caitlin's hand trembled as she pulled it down. Her name and Jeremy's, in my careful script. I leaned forward in my apartment chair, phone clutched in both hands, as she tore open the seal. Her eyes moved across my words, Jeremy reading over her shoulder. I watched their faces change, confusion to shock, to disbelief, to horror. He sold the house. Caitlin's voice rose to a near shriek. How could he do this to us? Jeremy snatched the note, reading it again. That manipulative old bastard. He was playing us the whole time. $890,000. Caitlin was crying now, her makeup streaking. He kept it all. That money was supposed to be our future. Your future? Jeremy snapped, his mask of devoted son-in-law finally slipping. This is your father, Caitlin. You should have handled this better. My fault? She whirled on him, years of suppressed resentment boiling over. You're the one who said he was becoming a burden. You're the one who pushed for the nursing home. Well, he was a burden. Look what he's done to us. Jeremy gestured wildly around the room that was no longer theirs. We're homeless. Our lease expires next week. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on me. They were fighting in my living room about being homeless, just as they planned to make me homeless in their nursing home. Call a lawyer, Caitlin said desperately. There has to be something we can do. He can't just sell the house without telling us. With what money? Jeremy's voice dripped with contempt. In case you forgot, I lost my job 6 months ago, and your marketing salary barely covers our car payments. Then get another job. Where do you think financial firms are lining up to hire advisors who got fired for questionable transactions? I watched my daughter's face crumble as she realized the full scope of their situation. No house, no inheritance, no savings, and Jeremy's unemployable status finally revealed. How could he be so cruel, she whispered. The same way you were cruel when you called him a burden and planned to warehouse him. Jeremy shot back. The old man was smarter than both of us. Through my phone screen, I watched them collapse into my old furniture. Furniture that would be gone tomorrow. Caitlin buried her face in her hands while Jeremy stared at my note, the expression of a man who'd finally understood he'd been outplayed. I turned off the camera feed. I'd seen enough. Walking to my small kitchen, I opened the bottle of Ellen's favorite wine I'd saved from the house. A Saint Emilion Grand Cru we'd been saving for a special occasion that never came. I poured myself a glass and raised it toward Ellen's photo. To you, my love. Justice served. The wine tasted like victory. They learned what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Probably Caitlin. I deleted it without reading and powered off the phone completely. Walking to my window, I looked out at the Denver skyline, painted gold by the setting sun. Somewhere across the city, my daughter and her husband were facing the consequences of their cruelty. Somewhere in my former house, they were learning that their burden had become their biggest problem. For the first time in 2 years since Ellen's death, I felt completely free. I was no longer anyone's burden. I was my own man again, with my own money, my own choices, and my own future stretching ahead like an open road. Roy Hayes had left the building, and he was never coming back.